Chaos came to America long before independence. In 1676, the English colony of Virginia erupted into violence. Armed settlers marched on their own government, authority collapsed, and the colonial capital of Jamestown was burned to the ground. This was Bacon's rebellion. And it didn't happen suddenly. For years, pressure had been building beneath the surface of colonial life. By the mid-1600s, Virginia's economy depended almost entirely on tobacco. Tobacco created enormous wealth, but that wealth flowed upward. A small group of powerful plantation owners controlled the best land, dominated the colonial government, and wrote laws that protected themselves. Most colonists lived on the edge of survival. Thousands arrived as indentured servants, working for years in exchange for passage to America and the promise of land. When their contracts ended, many found the promise hollow. The best land was already claimed. There was only one direction left to go: west. The frontier was unforgiving. Native American tribes resisted English expansion, and violence was constant. Farms were raided, homes were destroyed, and families lived in fear. Protection was supposed to come from the government. It didn't. Frontier settlers sent petitions to Jamestown again and again, demanding defense. The responses were slow, limited, or non-existent. Each ignored request made anger grow. At the center of this tension stood Governor William Berkeley. Berkeley had ruled Virginia for decades and represented the wealthy elite. He refused to authorize large-scale attacks against nearby Native American tribes, fearing economic damage and loss of political control. To settlers on the frontier, this felt like abandonment. Trust in the government began to collapse. By 1675, violence escalated rapidly. After a series of brutal encounters between settlers and Native Americans, frontier communities demanded immediate action. Berkeley still hesitated. That hesitation proved disastrous. That's when Nathaniel Bacon entered the story. Bacon was young, ambitious, and deeply resentful. Though wealthy himself, he accused Berkeley of corruption, favoritism, and failing to protect English lives. His message spread fast. People were ready to listen. Without official approval, Bacon gathered armed followers and launched attacks on Native American villages. These raids were swift and violent, and they made little distinction between hostile tribes and peaceful ones. The colony began to unravel. Governor Berkeley declared Bacon a traitor and ordered his arrest. Bacon refused. Instead, he marched on Jamestown. Armed rebels advanced on the colonial capital, forcing Berkeley to flee. For the first time, colonial authority collapsed under internal pressure. It looked like a revolution. Bacon issued the Declaration of the People, accusing Berkeley of tyranny and demanding political reform. The language was bold, but the rebellion itself was unstable. Cracks were already forming. Poor farmers wanted land and safety. Former servants wanted opportunity. Enslaved Africans saw a chance to escape bondage. These groups were united by anger, not vision. And anger fades fast. In September 1676, the rebellion reached its peak. After being driven out, Bacon returned to Jamestown. This time, he burned it. Homes, churches, and government buildings were reduced to ashes. The capital of Virginia was destroyed by its own colonists. For a moment, it seemed like the old system was finished. But history shifted suddenly. Nathaniel Bacon fell ill, likely from dysentery, and died. The rebellion lost its center. Without Bacon, organization collapsed. Fighters deserted. Unity dissolved. Governor Berkeley returned with British troops. What followed was ruthless. More than 20 rebels were executed. Many others had their property seized. Fear replaced rebellion almost overnight. Berkeley ruled with extreme punishment. His actions were so severe that even the English king was alarmed, eventually recalling him to England. But the lesson had already been learned. Virginia's ruling elite understood something terrifying. The rebellion had shown that poor white farmers and enslaved Africans could unite against those in power. That unity threatened the entire colonial system. The response was calculated. Virginia shifted away from white indentured servants and toward enslaved African labor, whose status became permanent and hereditary. At the same time, poor white colonists were given small legal privileges simply for being white. This divide weakened class unity, and it worked. Bacon's rebellion did not lead to freedom or reform. Instead, it hardened inequality and helped shape America's racial system. Long before the American Revolution, the colonies were already struggling over power, land, and control. Bacon's rebellion was the warning, and it proved just how quickly everything could burn.